If you're thinking about moving to Lincoln, Nebraska, you've probably heard the usual things, that it's affordable, that it's quiet, it's a good place to retire or raise a family, and those things can be true. But what I've found, both from people I know who have relocated and also living here myself, is that there are a few things that tend to surprise people after their move. Some of them are really good and some take a little getting used to. So what I want to do today is walk you through those real pros and cons of living in Lincoln. Not a generic list you'd find online, but something that will actually affect your day-to-day life once you live here. This is where a lot of relocation advice might miss the mark. So you'll find out things like cost of living, or that there's parks, or it's a college town. All of that is technically accurate, but it doesn't help you really understand what it feels like to live here or how to decide if Lincoln's the right fit for you specifically. So Lincoln's one of those places where, depending on your expectations, you can either absolutely love it or love it and feel like something's a little bit off. So I want to break this down in a way that helps you actually picture life here in Lincoln. One of the biggest advantages of living in Lincoln, and something that almost everybody says that I've known when they relocate and get here, is how compact and efficient daily life feels. Usually your routine grocery store, gym, restaurants, errands can happen within a 10 to 15 minute radius of where you live. That might not sound like a big deal coming from a metro, but it affects your time, more than you think. And you're not planning your whole life around a 45-minute trip for errands. And it's not just the convenience of that, but the mental bandwidth day to day that you don't have to deal with in traffic. And it affects how you pick your neighborhood. But in Lincoln, you have a little more flexibility. You can choose a neighborhood based on the feel, the features, the stage of life you're in, not just proximity. And that's a huge plus for a lot of people. So the flip side is that Lincoln is not trying to be a big city. So if you're coming from somewhere with a lot of density or nightlife or constant activity, that is something that you're going to notice pretty quickly. Definitely here there's a slower, more predictable rhythm. Restaurants might close earlier. Things aren't always open late. Now there are definitely great spots and things to do, but it's not that, what are we doing tonight, all night energy. For some people that's what they want, but for others, they might be used to more variety or spontaneity. It can be a little quiet here, so just depends on what you want in your day-to-day. Another major reason people look at Lincoln is housing, and compared to a lot of the country, it still makes good sense financially here. Now, I do want to be careful here because obviously prices have gone up the last several years, and it's not a hidden secret like it might have been 10 or 15 years ago, but what you do get is a market where in many cases you can still find a home that's livable, functional, and in a decent area without completely stretching yourself financially. And that definitely matters because a lot of people, when they're buying, they don't just look at the purchase price. It's also long-term comfort, especially if you're relocating. Can I afford this every month? Is there flexibility in my budget? And Lincoln offers that a lot more than other larger markets. Well, the trade-off is there because it's relatively affordable, and then demand can be pretty strong in certain price ranges, like mid-200s to mid-300s. So a lot of buyers might land there, and so what you'll find is the good homes in those ranges don't always sit for very long. So while it's not necessarily a hyper-competitive market all the time, there are some pockets where you need to be ready to act, and that's something that can catch people off guard. You might assume a smaller city means less competition, but that is not always how it plays out. So one thing Lincoln does really well, and this is something I appreciate the longer I've been here, is that neighborhoods tend to have a really clear identity. So areas like Country Club or Near South are established and classic. Bethany has its own charm and layout. South Lincoln has newer development with different trade-offs. East Ridge is a great mid-century community. Some of these things might align with how you live and what you want to actually have your life be like here. Do you want walkability? Do you want new construction? Do you want character? Those are real choices here that you can make. So the flip side is you can't just pick anywhere and expect it to feel the same, because those neighborhood differences really matter. And if you don't quite understand how Lincoln's laid out, it is easy to end up in a neighborhood that technically checks the boxes on paper, but maybe doesn't feel quite right once you're living there. So that is definitely one of the things I've helped people with, is translating what they think they want into where that actually exists in this city. So another thing people don't always think about is that Lincoln is a place where it's pretty easy to build a stable, predictable routine. For a lot of people, especially if you're in that stage of life where you're thinking long term, that is a big advantage. So you're not dealing with a ton of activity or chaos because things are consistent, and over time that just creates a nice sort of rhythm that people value. You don't notice it right away, but after months of living here, especially years of living here, it becomes part of your baseline. So sometimes for people that consistency can be repetitive depending on how you spend your time. Well, if a city isn't always pushing tons of new experiences at you. You got to create that for yourself. And for some people, that's perfect. Others, it needs, a little adjustment. But it all comes back to whether or not you prefer a place that brings energy to you, or where you can create your own pace. So when you really look at it, Lincoln isn't about extremes. It's not trying to be the biggest, the fastest, the most exciting. What offers it is something different. It's stability, it's practicality, manageable day-to-day life that a lot of people are actively looking for, especially if they're coming out of a more hectic environment. For the right person, that's exactly what they want. And so for someone else, it might feel like something's missing, and that's why it's important to look at this honestly, and not just the highlights, but how it actually fits into your life. So if you're thinking about moving to Lincoln and trying to figure out where you'd actually fit, not just based on price, but based on how you want to live, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to walk you through what different areas feel like, and what to expect in your price range, and how to make a decision that actually works long term.